My therapist told me that getting dressed up to make these videos was giving me a sense of purpose in quarantine and therefore good for my mental health. I wanted to do a tutorial on how I navigate the pen tool in Illustrator to make my illustrations, and I thought I would do it using a project I'm working on right now. I am currently working on an animation for Tomar and the FCs. It's only mildly impressive. They're signed to Splice Records and they sell out every show. So throughout the time lapse, I'm going to be referencing these 3 capabilities of the pen tool. I'll put them all right here. Yeah, the main pen tool, the biggest thing you need to take away from the pen tool is that if you click a point and drag while holding down, you can make it a curved line instead of a straight line. That's the biggest thing. Then there's plus or minus, which is pretty self-explanatory. It means we're subtracting an anchor point or we're adding an anchor point if we need another curve or we need another point. And then we have this one, which is, I like to call it the conversion. It's just basically you can take something from being a hard angle, because sometimes you need a hard angle, or you can click it and then it'll make it a curve with anchor points. And that's very useful because sometimes you think you need a hard line and it turns out you need a curved line. So you can use that conversion without having to start over. And I'll be referencing these throughout the time lapse, but I just want to break them down really quickly. So when I was younger, I felt a lot of pressure to trace my sketch exactly. Now I may or may not sketch, depending on the research I've done, if I feel I need to. But don't feel pressured to do a sketch beforehand. I know a lot of illustrators that don't draw at all. They just rely on the shape tool, and they make really compelling and interesting characters just using shapes and building off of that. And a lot of times that's what illustration is, so don't get bogged down on whether or not you're good at drawing. It's 2020, you're living in the past, you do not have to be able to draw with pen and paper. I've done my research. I know I'm going to do 60s silhouette, 60s fashion, 60s hairdos and stuff like that, and rely heavily on mod mid-century color schemes and shapes. So I've already done my research, which I would encourage you to do. And I've done one character, so I'm going to set her to the side right here to kind of reference back to and make sure that my new character matches that. And as you can see, it's not super realistic. I have hyper elongated limbs, and I'm kind of using that to be what makes this illustration interesting. So again, don't feel bogged down if it doesn't look hyper realistic. That's kind of the fun of art, right? Is that it can be surreal. It doesn't have to look like everything looks in the real world. I don't know if I mentioned this in the beginning, but also when you make a shape in Illustrator, they're going to be these, I don't know what even to call them. They're just these tools you can use to make a hard line a curved line and vice versa, and they'll show up as these little circles, so you'll see me messing around with that also. I've set my color scheme off to the side here. I got this color scheme at this website. It just generates random color palettes for you, and I modified it a little bit afterward and made it a little bit brighter, but I really like that website, so I'll put the URL here. Yeah, so I'm just freehanding this. Like I said, I used to trace my sketches, but when I opened the program, I knew I wanted to make a chick in a strapless dress with long, fancy gloves. And look, even without a head, she looks extremely fancy and rich. Pathfinder, I also keep handy and keep open. When I'm doing these, a lot of time I strictly use my pen tool, Pathfinder, and then there's this tool up here. It's it makes different shades of a color you're using, and that helps kind of make sure all your colors go with each other and are complementary. Those are basically the 3 that I use. I'm going to freehand this hand. Freehand a hand. But I am. I'm not gonna worry about it looking perfect. Sometimes I'll take a picture of my hand because hands are difficult, and I'll reference that while I'm making hands. Use my shape tool to make a rectangle for her skinny cigarette. Don't smoke, guys. It's proven to be bad for you. But back in the 60s, they didn't know better. Or they did know better, but they just wanted to look cool. So she's going to have a long cigarette. Now we're going to make a glamorous head to match her glamorous body and glamorous cigarette. Once again, just kind of getting like the basic head look. This lady over here doesn't have a face, really, so I don't even know if I'm going to give her facial features. Just want the suggestion of a face, you know what I mean? Maybe I'll give her a long cat eye liner or something like that. The hair, I'm gonna do that. I looked up so many 60s hairstyles, and it was just kind of these hard it's like they had just discovered hairspray. I mean, it was all these hard shapes. I kind of die for it, so I'm gonna do something like one of the ones I saw. Big bouffant, little flip out the end, maybe a straight across bang. Now, I like to use shadow play in my illustrations. It's just a nice way, and it's also a really easy way to add detail that doesn't take that long, but it really does make a difference in my illustrations. I feel like it makes it look like, I don't know, there's more going on. So I'm gonna add some shadow to under her hair and her neck, and I use the Pathfinder for that. I always copy the two shapes I'm cutting into paths. That way I don't lose the one that I want, like the neck. So I'll Command C that to copy it, make the shape, and then paste it underneath, and then just keep the shape for the shadow isolated on top, because it's too hard to like draw the line perfectly for the shadow. Just use the Pathfinder tool and it'll make it perfectly the same shape. Give her a little shoulder. Maybe I'll do a lip. A lot of this is finessing. Like, don't get freaked out if you're like, wow, the first thing I drew sucked. You have to kind of start with a base and then like, look at that. That looks like garbage. Just have to move it around till it doesn't look so garbagey. A lot of times I start with a shape and then just end up finessing it. Even after 10 years of playing in this program, I start with something that doesn't look good and I move it around until I like the way it looks. So look at her. Now she looks fancy. I just need to give her a backdrop. I want to use the same elements as my other one, but kind of set them up differently. Take this lamp and make it a little hallway in the club. You know, they always have like weird lighting and art on the walls just for like no reason. And they're like small lights that aren't even that bright. And you're like, what is this good for? And you're just like, oh, it's just ambiance. So maybe she's standing by these random lights. And again, I'll make them useless dark lights. Just to look cool. They don't light up anything. And that's pretty much it. She looks fancy. She's got a backdrop. I might isolate the long cigarette and animate that. Maybe animate a little smoke coming out of the end of it. But that's what I'll do. I'll do a really subtle animation from this.